Welcome back to the channel. Today I am gonna do something different, mainly because you guys have been asking for it. You guys wanted a Q&A session, so I decided I'm gonna do the following. Everybody who wants to know a little bit more, you guys want to know a little bit more information, leave your comments and your questions below, and I will do a part 2 to this. So let's get into it. Today I'm gonna do the main questions I get asked, and it is absolutely awesome. So the first question I get asked a ton of times is, do I regret buying a Tesla? And the answer is obviously not. I absolutely love the car. There's zero regret. Unlike many of the other cars I bought, in this case, I have zero regret. I've absolutely fallen in love with this car. In fact, I treat it more as a family member than as an object. And that alone should tell you guys how much I enjoy driving this car, how much I enjoy having this car in my life. Just because I say I don't regret it, it doesn't necessarily mean that there are things that I don't necessarily like about it. And I think this is where a lot of the questions come from. I make comments, I wish Tesla would do this. That's fine. I do wish. I always have a little hope maybe Tesla will do this or that. But in the real world, I am perfectly fine with it. I love the little quirks it has. I love the great features it has. I love every aspect of this. So the answer to question number 1 is no. I do not in any way, shape, or form regret buying this car. Question number 2 is a really good one. I've been asked how I liked driving the Model S, X, and 3. Was there something specific that stood out between the 3 cars? And considering the fact that I have the Model S, would I consider buying, let's say, an X or a 3 instead of having my S? It's a really good question, and I've been asked about this regarding even trade-ups. Would I trade up to the Model Y, for example? The truth is, no, I wouldn't. I still think the Model S is probably the most fun and exciting car there is in terms of just the luxury. It's a luxurious car. Granted, it doesn't have all the, crazy $10 million leather in there, but it's not about that. It's about the experience of getting in a car. Every single time I get in this car, I am absolutely fascinated by everything that there is. Now, with that said, I would like to point out that the Model X, I am absolutely fascinated. I am intrigued by, obviously, the windshield. It's a beautiful windshield. You're looking at the gullwing doors. I mean, those are absolutely fascinating. I love them. And the Model 3, I love its, I guess you can say, just the entire basicness of the car. Now, I'm not necessarily the person who likes really basic stuff, but it's really simple. It's straightforward, nothing complicated. And that vent system is phenomenal. It really is. I've enjoyed playing around with the vent. I've had the luxury of driving all 3 cars. I've had the luxury of having all the cars, I guess, for multiple days, and really, being able to enjoy and take advantage of all the things that they have to offer. But ultimately for me, the Model S still has the biggest, I guess, pull, right? I love the way it looks. I love that personality that it has, and I really love that profile that it that stance, if you will. So I wouldn't trade my car for anything. If anything, I would more than likely buy another one, which actually leads me to question number 3. Question number 3 that I get asked so much is, will I consider buying another Tesla? To a degree, I guess the answer is yes, I would consider it. What would I do with it? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't even make financial sense to have 2 Teslas if you only need one. But once the Model Y came out, a lot of people really jumped on me about it and asked me, okay, knowing full well that, I like SUVs, would I consider the Model Y? And it was probably the biggest question I got over a period of 2 or 3 weeks. And the answer is no. I think back to the same reason I didn't want to get a Model 3 to start with. It is a personal choice, and My personal choice states that I really don't like that single screen. Aside from that, I love those cars. And the Model Y I think will be a great car. However, the Model X I think is just a little bit better. So if I was to buy a second Tesla, I guess it would be, no, I don't guess, I know for a fact it would be a Model X. So I hope that answers that question. Probably since I started this channel, one of the biggest questions that keep coming up is, what kind of cars have I driven? I have driven more cars than I can actually count. In fact, I tried to make a list and I realized I kept adding to it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it this way. I've owned a new car basically every 2 years, which was financially an idiotic thing to do, but it kind of gives you an idea how much I love cars. And as for driving cars, I have driven some of the slowest, crappiest cars there are, all the way up to some of the fastest, most beautiful cars there are. And I am fortunate enough to have both the connections and the friendships to have access to those cars. At least I did back in the day. It's very interesting because my very last car, just before I got my Tesla, was a BMW X3 35i. It was a gorgeous car. I still don't have anything bad to say about it. Yes, it uses premium fuel, and it surprised me the amount of money that cost me over about 3 years. It was actually one of the longer cars I've kept. But the amount of money that cost me in fuel, in maintenance, and so forth and so on, is actually pretty insane. Considering the fact that I have my Tesla, it's costing nowhere near as much. And yeah, I am quite surprised. But as for the cars, I have driven a ton, and I really got a chance to experience many different cars in many different I guess categories, which is part of the whole process here. I guess it gives me a little bit of insight into ICE cars versus the EV cars. Now, one of my favorite questions that I personally enjoy answering and I enjoy talking about is, what was my incentive? What was that thing that really brought me to get a Tesla? Ultimately, it's not about being green. It wasn't about that. Although it's starting to be. To be honest, I've never been one of those type of people. But I find myself doing more recycling ever since I have this car. I don't know if it's just subconsciously now I do it more, or maybe I'm just more aware of it. But the car was about, like I said earlier, I've used to buy cars all the time. And my BMW, I didn't actually I wanted to keep that long term. But certain situations came up, everything was great, and I absolutely loved, once I sat in this car, I absolutely loved what this car stood for. At that point, I didn't even know what it is to own a Tesla. I didn't know about the software updates. I didn't know about so many things that basically nobody told me the car is only going to get better the longer I own it. And I got in at a great time, because with my car I do have unlimited free supercharging as long as I own this car. So I think I just snuck in at the perfect time when it came to buying a Tesla. And for long term, especially for somebody like myself who likes to travel, who likes to be on likes to drive, this car just hit the perfect spot on pretty much everything I've ever wanted in a car. But I think that's the point. It's not just a car. And like I said earlier, it's almost like a family member. And I treat this car as such too. Maybe I don't clean it as often as I should. But it broke my heart when somebody dinged it. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't crazy damage. But it happened twice. The first time, I almost cried. I've never almost cried when somebody hit my car. And this one it hurt me right here. There's an attachment to this car, and ultimately I'm not going insane. I understand it's an object, it's a car. But to me it's more than that. It really is. And I think if you talk to a lot of Tesla owners, they'll tell you the same thing. It's definitely more than just a car. Now, the number one question I get, and I think I'm going to wrap it up with this one. The number one question I get a lot is, where do I see Tesla going? What do I see in Tesla's future over the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever it may be? And I think a lot of people ask this question because of the news and the information that's out there that is really irrelevant to the facts. And so my answer typically is Tesla will do great things, regardless if how the company goes, because of the stance and the size of this company and everything they've accomplished. It's really, really hard for Tesla to fail at this point. And although, let's say, Tesla itself might fail, there will be definitely companies that will be very happy to buy them out. Apple being a great example of this. So what do I see in the next 10, 15, 20 years? I see this company advancing in ways that we never thought of. I think they're going to continuously come up with products that are mind-blowing, futuristic. Now, there will be a point when this is going to stop. It's kind of, I always compare it to Apple. There was a point when they were creating some of the craziest products and everything was always new and everything was always fresh. They were better than everyone else. And today, you couldn't get innovation out of Apple the same way if you tried. And I think that's not a question. I think there's a limitation. There's a point where that's going to stop. So I think for the next 5 to 7 years, there's going to be a lot of innovation happening on Tesla's side. But eventually, it is going to calm down. So that's my answer to that. Like I said before, leave your questions in the comment section below. I will do a part 2, and I'm going to try and answer on the next, for part 2, I'm going to try and answer as many questions as possible. That maybe end up being a longer video, but we'll see. So what can I say? Thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much for your comments. You guys all have been great. Keep calling me out if I make a mistake on some information I'm giving, or look, I'm not perfect, I'm human. So if I do give you guys some information that you find that it wasn't necessarily accurate, call me out. Tell me. I have no problem with criticism. Just be nice about it. And otherwise, I'm going to just keep trying to make you guys good videos. There's a lot of things happening next week, and I'm going to be very curious to see basically all the results from with the SEC, and obviously I can't wait to see what Tesla has in store for us with regards to autopilot, what's next, and the full self-driving especially. So there's a lot of things that are going to be happening, and I still have a ton of videos that I'm planning on making for you guys, but unfortunately there's also life to deal with. So with that said, once again, I'm going to thank each and every one of you for your support, for your comments, your upcoming questions. This channel would be nothing without all of you. Your support means a great deal to me. So thank you, drive safe. Till next time, goodbye.